Hey, how are you doing, everybody, and welcome back into the SFS channel. My name is Gavin, and today I'm going to be talking through my rookie running back rankings for Dynasty Fantasy Football here. We've still got quite a ways to go before the 2022 NFL Draft, and before we have official landing spots, draft capital information, and all that great stuff for these players. But today I'll be talking through the skill sets, some of the positives, the negatives, a couple red flags with some of these players, and giving you my current evaluation of this list. As always, your guys' thoughts are more than welcome in the comment section below. Let me know what you think about these players, because chances are we're going to disagree on a few of the things I've got on the list today, but I'll be breaking it down and talking briefly through my top players at the position at this point in time. So let's not waste any more time, and let's get started. As always, for those of you that are new around here to the SFS channel, drop down and click that subscribe button to join the community today, and drop a like on today's episode as well, so other Dynasty players out there can find my content and, of course, grow the community and make this a more interactive space. So Breece Hall is my number one running back for this upcoming draft class at this point in time. As a whole, this draft isn't something that I think gets you overly excited at the running back position. It's quite possible that we won't see a running back go on day one. Last year, we had Najee Harris and Travis Etienne go in the first round of the NFL draft. But I think that just at face value, it looks like almost all, if not the entire group, is going to be day two players here. But I think that Breece Hall has an excellent shot to land the top amount of draft capital invested into him by an NFL franchise. And I think that his well-rounded skill set has him best suited to be the number one player on the board at this point in time. Of course, we have the NFL Combine and Pro Days to go to test these players' measurables for their athleticism and their speed, explosiveness, and all that stuff that we love to look at as Dynasty players. However, again, as I say, at this point in time, just from watching film and assessing and putting some context behind the production we have at this point in time, Breece Hall is my number one player. He goes 6'1", 220 pounds. That is that nice NFL three-down workhorse build, or at least that size puts him in a category where I think he can stand up to a three-down work set at the next level here. At 220, I don't think he's going to be too light in taking a bunch of nicks and getting frequently banged up. Breece Hall obviously is out of Iowa State, and again, I do think he has a chance to be that three-down back. He's a patient runner. He has a decent level of physicality. And I've seen some nice things from him. He's a pretty dang good pass catcher. He's not someone I would say is elite at that skill, but he is someone who can contribute in that way to our fantasy lineups, which is going to be a very important factor here. My second running back in this class, and this is honestly where I would say that Breece Hall is the consensus RB1 at this point in time, but it's really up to personal preference here from this point going forward, and obviously this is going to change a lot. Like I said, without knowing draft capital, landing spots, this is all going to change. This is just my personal preference right now and kind of my projections and my guesses to how this thing is going to all fall out. But I have Kenneth Walker out of Michigan State here as my second RB on the board. He goes 5'10", 212, so a little bit smaller than Breece Hall. That does start to, and you're going to see this issue pop up a lot with the names on the list today. Size is kind of an issue for some of the running backs in this class. You've got some lighter builds and some guys that might not be able to stand up to a full workhorse skill or not skill set. They have a lot of the nice skills you look for, but they might not have the durability component, which obviously if you've played Dynasty, you know that availability is a great attribute to have for a player. However, Kenneth Walker is someone who has a skill set that I really, really like. His one-cut burst and explosiveness in the open field is something that I highly covet, and I think he could be an excellent home run hitter at the next level if he falls into that perfect landing spot. What I also love to see on tape was against the toughest level of competition, against that coveted Michigan defense in that rivalry game, Kenneth Walker showed up, and he basically played his best in that game and was a large reason that Michigan State was able to pull off the upset over Michigan this season against a defense that has a lot of really skilled defenders on it. And like I said, Kenneth Walker's skill set is one that I think can translate to the next level, but it's going to come down to where he's headed on draft day and what that situation in the backfield looks like. There's a handful of teams that could use a 3-down running back. The Miami Dolphins, for example, would be a team to look at that could potentially use a running back. But again, we have absolutely no idea how the cards are going to fall on draft day. But I do love that open field explosiveness that Walker possesses. Isaiah Spiller here at number 3 solely gets the nod ahead of some other players just because of the fact that I think he has the size that a team could potentially look to him as their lead back at 6'1", 215 out of Texas A&M. He does have the NFL build. He's a little bit taller for a running back, but again, he is someone who can also catch the football out of the backfield, so you do have a level of dynamic ability, but as a pure rusher and as a threat out of the backfield on running downs, he's not someone that gets me overly excited, and I think that he might be one of the most overrated players in this 2022 rookie dynasty draft class because of the fact that he plays the running back position. Myself, early on in my evaluation process, I made some comparisons to a Matt Forte, a taller running back build that, again, can catch the football out of the backfield. But I don't think Spiller is anywhere near as prolific as Forte was and will have a successful career track record comparable to that of Matt Forte. So I think that we need to pump the brakes a little bit on Isaiah Spiller here. And again, the reason I did give him the nod here is because I think that his size could land him in a position to have an effective role with the team. However, I do like the actual skill sets of a couple players later on the list. But again, that does play a big factor. Kyren Williams is one of those players. If Kyren Williams were a bigger body, if he were someone that had a larger size and frame, I would be absolutely all over him. I love Kyren Williams' pass catching skill set. I think he'll make a day one impact in PPR leagues because of the damage he can do out of the backfield. Think back to some players who came out of this draft class. If you look at a Kenneth Gainwell, I think that Kyren Williams could be even better than him. And I'm not necessarily drawing comparisons between those two players specifically, but just in the nature of the role Gainwell played for that Eagles team. He was more of a scat back and someone that was used in a gadget role. I do think that Kyren Williams could have a sufficient level of work as a team's third down, again, pass catching running back. I do love the traits that he possesses, but again, at just 5'9", 198, being below 200 pounds, it's hard for me to believe that unless he bulks up and shows up to the combine a significantly larger player, that he's going to be able to find a situation where a team uses him in a 3-down workload and find a situation where he's consistently able to handle that level of work without sustaining injury, because again, availability is a huge emphasis for our dynasty leagues. Kyren, though, is a player who plays bigger than his size. He's someone that after contact, he'll put the shoulder down, he'll drive his legs, and get yards after contact. And that's something I've loved to see from him on tape. Again, skill set-wise, I would put him above Isaiah Spiller. I think he's a more skillful and talented player than Spiller is out of the backfield, but that size is the main point of hesitation for me, why Kyren remains lower on the list. At number 5, I have James Cook, 5'11", 190 out of Georgia. So just kind of how much I've emphasized size and having a workhorse frame, the fact that James Cook is 2 inches taller than Kyren Williams and weighs almost 10 pounds less than him is immediately a red flag. However, the skill set, the open field ability he has is fantastic. And James Cook gets me really, really excited when watching tape. I see flashes of his older brother Dalvin on film. I see him getting out and having that electric ability out in space. I see him having explosive potential to be, I talked about how Kenneth Walker can be a home run, one-cut type player. I think James Cook could have a similar role, and he has some nice pass-catching plays out of the backfield at Georgia as well. However, the fact that he played for Georgia, the fact that he played behind the privilege of having an above-average offensive line makes things a little bit harder to break down and digest here from an evaluation standpoint. But I think the talent speaks for itself. I would absolutely love to see James Cook bulk up, put some more muscle on. Even if it costs him a little bit of his explosiveness and speed, I think it would be worth it, because this is someone who I think has the potential to become someone really special if he falls into the right landing spot, and if he can match his, or if he can match his potential by doing the right things that he needs to do to prepare his body to be a workhorse in the National Football League. But at the end of the day, he just might not get an opportunity, because when you start to talk about being down here on the list at number 5, it's going to come down to how teams evaluate players, who's higher on their draft boards. And ultimately, the guys that go sooner are going to most likely play faster, unless you're talking about an odd situation in San Francisco where 6th-round pick Elijah Mitchell somehow finds a way into the lineup over 3rd-round pick Trey Sermon. But that's neither here nor there. I do really like James Cook and the tools that he brings to the table, so I would love to see him get an opportunity and see exactly what he can provide to our fantasy lineups. Up next here, we've got Brian Robinson Jr., the basically sledgehammer running back out of Alabama. This is a player who has a very large stature at 6'1", 228. However, my big knock on Brian Robinson is a lack of explosive ability, whereas we just talked about with some other players, Kenneth Walker, James Cook, how I love their burst in the open field. I love the speed they have and the ability to create distance between them and those trying to tackle them. Brian Robinson's a bit of the opposite. Now, he had the ultimate privilege of the Alabama offensive line to block for him. Obviously, Evan Neal is someone in the conversation for a top 3 pick, if not the first overall pick to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Brian Robinson is a dump truck. He's a bulldozer. He's someone that can impose his will physically on defenders. But again, the fact that he is rather clunky and slow, if that's how you want to compare him to the rest of this draft class, that's a red flag, because at the end of the day, what is his ceiling? That's something that's going to put a large cap on it. I don't think he can be a 3-down workhorse for a team if he's not really athletically making a distance with his burst between himself and the defenders. So he could be a nice stash, a nice player to have on your bench. Maybe he's a high-level handcuff for another player, a guy who could carve out a role for himself on the goal line. And I ultimately do like him. But again, as far as fantasy football goes and what we're talking about as his potential to be a 3-down back at the next level, because ultimately that's the goal. You want to find the next Jonathan Taylor, the next Delvin Cook. You're looking to find your next Najee Harris, the guy that's going to be the workhorse for his team and command lots of touches and rack up fantasy points. That's kind of the standard I'm holding everyone to this list on. However, I do see him having the skill set to potentially, again, carve out a role like that goal line situation that I just covered. Rachaad White, someone who I had a lot higher in my initial rankings, but after exploring and watching more tape on other players, I have since moved him down to my number 7 spot, but I will say he has a fantastic profile when you look at his size, his speed. The main thing that I think that holds Rachaad White back from being a more highly coveted player on this list is his demeanor or his nature as a player. This is a guy who has a nice frame at 6'2", 210 that I think has an NFL workhorse build, and he has a really nice, he's not necessarily elite at any one skill here nor there, but he's got a really nice complete skill set, and I think that this could come together really nicely. But the one thing that I see over and over again is he's frequently bouncing plays off tackle and outrunning defenders at the college level that I don't think he'll be able to do the same for in the National Football League. Guys are going to catch up to him, and he's not going to have nearly as many big off-script plays, if that's what you want to call them, because if the run is designed to go up the middle and White decides to cut it off tackle, go off script, go outside of the designed diagram of the play art, I don't think he's going to find as much success with that in the NFL is essentially the point I'm trying to make here. And I would love to see someone at that 6'2", 210 frame to put his shoulder down, impose his will on defenders, and run people over, because I think he has that type of body. He just has to get that coached into him. And at the end of the day, when you see these knocks and these flaws on players from a dynasty manager perspective, you don't necessarily know that these things are all going to get fixed and that these worries are going to go away. So it's important to point them out here and obviously be aware of a player's flaw when you're drafting them on your league's draft day. So I think at 7 here, White has a lot of potential to outperform this draft status in this ranking. I have him at this point in time. I used to have him up as, I'll look at my sheet here, I had him up in the range right after Kyren Williams. So I had Rachaad White up at my RB5 position, but since he has slid down a little bit more than anyone else on the list today. And then finally here at number 8, I've got Zamir White out of Georgia. So 2 Georgia running backs crack my top 8 today. And this is where we'll be stopping today's video. There are a couple other players. Jerome Ford out of Cincinnati, Pierre Strong, that I will talk about in future episodes. And if you would like to see breakdowns of my entire top 40 big board that I have at this point in time, you can check that out on my website, sizzlefantasy.com. When you become an SFS Gold member, it's a monthly subscription service, and it unlocks everything on my website. It's only $5 a month. You can cancel at any time. Via your profile. You just got to create an account and then simply sign up to become a gold member. You get all my rankings, redraft, dynasty, positional rankings, all that great stuff, articles. There's a few exclusive videos on there right now. But if you're looking to go check out my other rookie analysis I have at this point in time, there's a lot more coming to that platform for those of you that are gold members. So go check out that out right now. The link to that is in the description of today's episode, or you can just type sizzlefantasy.com into your web browser. But Zamir White is my number 8 player here at 6 foot 216. He does have another nice size. So there's some players that I'm valuing their athletic traits over their size, and there's some players down here who their lack of athletic ability, like a Zamir White, or I should say comparatively to the other players in this class, push them down the list a little bit here. I think that Zamir White is someone who we all expected would be a more highly coveted prospect coming out of Georgia. I don't think he ever quite lived up to the expectations we had for him there to be a potential top running back in a given draft class, but it comes down to the fact that he's just another big physical player that isn't afraid to use his size, kind of like a Brian Robinson. He'll put his shoulder down, but when he gets in the open field at the next level, he's going to get tracked down, he's going to get shoestring tackled, and he's not going to be able to get away from guys, essentially, is the point I'm trying to make here. He's maybe going to break through into the second and third level of defenses if he's given the opportunity. But more times than not, if he's got more than half the distance of the football field to run, I don't think he's getting away from the last line of defense, or someone will track him down from behind. Again, like a Brian Robinson, he's someone I could see having a nice role carved out on the goal line for himself. But at the end of the day, this isn't someone who I see being a 3-down lead back for any NFL franchise. It more likely will play a situational role. So those are my top 8 running backs right now for Dynasty as it stands at this point in time. Again, this list is going to change a lot over the next couple of months here, as we approach the draft, and then obviously get out of that process and officially know where everyone's going this year. So again, drop down in the comment section below. Let me know your thoughts on these players. I would be really interested to hear if you've got any questions for me. I'll be happy to answer those down in the comment section below. Go check out the SFS Community Discord server. The invite link to that is in the description of today's episode as well. And then again, go check out the Dynasty Draft Guide this year on sizzlefantasy.com. It's a work in progress right now, but as long as you're a member, you have access to every new piece of information as soon as it's published on the site, and access to everything that's already currently on there, which right now, at least for the 2022 season, is all of my rankings up to this point in time. So go check that stuff out, you guys, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace out.